cradle of Western civilization, land of wine-dark sea and rosy-fingered dawn, a world center of Christian orthodoxy, and home to the monks of Mount Athos.
NBC News, in association with the Standing Conference of Orthodox Bishops, presents the Monks of Mount Athos, an exclusive report on the life of a monastic community in the Aegean Sea. The program will be narrated by Father Alexander Karloutsas of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America.
For more than 10 centuries, the monastic community of Mount Athos has ruled a rocky peninsula jutting into the seas of northern Greece. It has withstood the tides of history and the tides of the Aegean, eternally stormy along the entire 40-mile northern shore, constantly serene along the sands of the south, a duality significant to orthodoxy itself. There's a road between the two shores, cutting across the neck of the peninsula near the mainland and dividing the religious enclave from the outside world. No woman is permitted to cross it. Since Mount Athos is dedicated to Mother Mary, all other women are barred. These are traditions guarded for 1,000 years. But one tradition, more secular, has now been broken. A team of Greek and American journalists has been permitted, for the first time, to visit Mount Athos. The small fishing village of Erissos is the gateway to the northern shoreline of Mount Athos. Vacationers crowd the beaches of this fishing community. During the summer, they watch as each day a boat leaves the tiny dock at Erissos, bound for the tip of the peninsula, with visitors and supplies for the monastic community. The trip takes 7 hours. There is only one approach to the monastery of Espigmenou, one of the 20 monasteries which make up the community of Mount Athos. It is from the ocean, and since the water is often rough, boats are not able to dock in the open harbor every day. A gem-encrusted jewel box containing the holy girdle of Mother Mary, a Byzantine treasure which is among the most precious possessions of the Vatopedi Monastery, the second largest on Mount Athos. Vatopedi contrasts with the rugged simplicity of the other monasteries of Athos. It is comparatively wealthy. The income from sales of lumber and icons enables it to boast its own electric generator. The generator provides electricity for 3 hours every night. Stavronikita is among the smallest and poorest of the monasteries. It is also the youngest, a mere 4½ centuries old. It houses only 12 monks. The oldest monastery on Athos is Lavra, founded by Byzantine Emperor Phocas in 963 AD. This is his crown, and with it a gospel in his handwriting. A copy of St. Paul's epistle to the Galatians dates back to the 6th century. It is the oldest document on Mount Athos. Lavra means a place of multitudes, and at one time the Lavra Monastery housed 1,000 monks. Now there are 47. On the northeast coast of the peninsula is Vuitton, one of the 8 monasteries of Athos which were founded on an ideorhythmic basis. Each monastery is either ideorhythmic, providing options for private enterprise, or synobitic, meaning completely communal, in which labor, prayer, meals, and housing are all shared in common. In ideorhythmic monasteries like Vatopedi or this one, Vuitton, workers can be hired from outside and paid a wage. Monks also are paid a meager wage for their work and are allowed to earn money elsewhere if they wish. Prayer can be either private or communal. Meals are taken in private. A shipment of seafood arrives for a 3-day festival at Vuitton. Fish, octopus, squid, and watermelon in the hundreds of kilos. Fathers Kalinikos and Damianos supervise. The Vuitton Monastery was founded in 980 AD by Bishop Klimis of Jerusalem, on the site where, it is believed, a ship carrying Mother Mary to Cyprus in the year 52 AD was forced to shore by a storm. Athos was then inhabited by pagan tribes, but was so beautiful that she asked her son to give it to her as a heavenly gift. He did so, and in that moment the ground shook and the pagan statues were destroyed. Ever since, the monks consider Athos to be the garden of the Virgin Mary and honor Vuitton as the place where she first landed. The preparation of a memorial cake for the festival. The cake, called coliba, is made from whole wheat, nuts, and raisins. After the wheat is sifted, it will be washed, then boiled until it is soft and fluffy. After straining and drying, nuts and raisins are added. The mixture is placed on a shallow tray and covered with a thin layer of baked flour and topped with a layer of fine sugar. Father Nifon is a skilled coliva decorator. He uses colored sugar to literally paint the image of the Blessed Virgin. Another ancient tradition on Mount Athos, the exchange of delegations between Vuitton and Lavra for their festivals. It dates back to the Byzantine emperors who founded these two monasteries. They were related and wished to establish and maintain an especially close bond between the two communities. Vuitton's abbot and elders welcome the Lavra group and give to its leader a cross and abbot staff, making him the honorary abbot for the 3-day celebration. Among Vuitton's art treasures, 4 16th century icons of apostles Peter and Paul, and archangels Gabriel and Michael. They were painted by Dominikos Theotokopoulos, better known as El Greco. Once a year, each monastery observes a special feast day and festival. It honors the saint to whom the main church, or Catholicon, is dedicated. For Vuitton, that saint is Mother Mary. The robing ceremony precedes the liturgy. Each item of the vestments duplicates to the most minute detail the garb worn by bishops of Byzantium, and the crown is the final adornment. Ancient handmade mosaic tile floors, some of them over 1,000 years old, reflect the skill and dedication of the monks of Mount Athos. One of the major events of the 3-day religious festival is the transfer of the miraculous icon of Virgin Mary, the Gatekeeper, from her small chapel near Vuitton's gate to the main church, where the Agrippnia, a 12-hour all-night vigil service, will be held. Bishop Stylianos of Melatoupolis leads the procession of monks and lay pilgrims as they carefully transfer the icon with typical Mount Athos ceremonial solemnity. The miraculous icon of Virgin Mary, the Gatekeeper, is one of the most revered icons among the monasteries of Mount Athos. According to legend, this icon of Mary and child was thrown into the sea somewhere in Turkey to prevent it from being destroyed. Several years later, ocean currents brought it off the coast of Athos Peninsula near Vuitton. The icon was taken from the sea by a monk and placed in the main church. One night, the same monk dreamed that the Mother of God ordered him to place her icon near the monastery gate. Accordingly, the monks built a chapel near the gate to house the icon. Another legend holds that a barbarian pirate raiding the monastery struck the icon where the face of Mary was depicted. When the icon bled, the pirate repented and converted to Christianity. The Eastern Orthodox faith regards the icon as a holy living presence, and the kissing of an icon becomes a communion with its spirit. Centuries of candle smoke have darkened the pigments of many icons. Gold and silver inlays cover the most holy and venerated icons. Chanters from all over Mount Athos have come to the chapel of Virgin Mary the Gatekeeper to take part in the service. Officiating are the priests of Lavra. A simandron, from the Greek word simeno, to call, is used to assemble the monks and their guests in the monastery's dining hall for another of the festival's major events, the reception and banquet. The ancient Byzantine frescoes on the dining hall's walls and ceiling are constant reminders that Mount Athos is literally a living museum and the custodian of culture. On this gala evening, the monks of Vuitton Monastery play host to two bishops, one of whom traveled from Canada for the festival. Other special guests include the honorary abbot from Lavra and the civil governor of Mount Athos. The banquet is an expression of agape, the Greek word for giving love, and a word traditionally used to express God's divine love for us all. At the conclusion of the festival, the time for farewells, the monks of Vuitton and their guests from neighboring monasteries prepare now to return to their daily monastic life of work and prayer, interrupted only by meals and a few hours of sleep. The guests include a serdaris, or elite guard of Athos, in his colorful Evzone dress uniform. Before departure, the honorary abbot from Lavra returns the crown, cross, and staff of his temporary office, restoring authority to Vuitton's permanent leaders. Many of the guests attending the festival are relatives of the monks, fathers, cousins, brothers, nephews, and the ancient rule is strictly upheld. There are no mothers or sisters, for no females are allowed to visit the monasteries of Mount Athos. The capital of Athos is the small town of Gatekeeper, the seat of the governing body, an elected council of 20 representatives of each monastery. Its main cathedral, the 9th century church of Protaton, houses the oldest frescoes on Athos. Gatekeeper also has the only hotel on Mount Athos, 4 rooms. It is the peninsula's most populated area and yet resembles a silent medieval town. The Russian skeet or cloister of St. Andrew houses the Athonian Theological School. Mount Athos is a self-governed part of Greece. obedient to both church and state. Civil Governor Demetrius Krekoukias explains why it is unique.
We have 3 foreign monasteries which are inhabited by Serbian, Bulgarian, and Russian monks who, upon arriving on Athos, acquire the Greek citizenship according to the rules of the Constitution. The civil governor's part is dictated by the Constitution. He is here to represent the Greek government, and he is a high-ranking officer of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He makes sure that the articles of the Constitution are enforced, and he supervises the security forces which safeguard Athos.
The House of Pahomians, home of Fathers Pandelimon, Akakios, and the Brotherhood of the Pahomians. The monks of Mount Athos take obvious joy in their development and use of various arts and crafts. They dedicate the most mundane daily tasks to the further glory of God. Thus, work becomes an extension of prayer. Father Pandelimon, longtime former Secretary General of the Holy Community, is also an ordained priest. He first arrived on Athos in 1930 when he was 20 years old. 2 of his 8 brothers became monks, as did his father. He is a gifted painter of icons, which are shipped to Greek Orthodox churches throughout the world. Father Akakios is also an ordained priest. He came to Mount Athos in 1936. The tending of his own vegetable garden is a labor of love, for the rocky soil of northern Greece is a stubborn element from which to coax vegetation. But the faith which can move mountains, when mixed with hard labor, brings forth the fruits of the earth in abundance. The life of a monk is simple, and yet in many ways noble. He displays an innate respect for the God-given elements of nature. Although orthodoxy insists that faith must be rooted in dogma, natural beauty is an avenue for worship. Father Pandelimon hopes and prays for the preservation of monasticism. He says, "I hope more young men will join our ranks, for I sense a revival among youth of the monastic ideal." A half-century before Christ, a Persian fleet was sunk by a storm off Mount Athos. The disaster prompted King Xerxes to carve a canal here through the neck of the peninsula. This allowed his armada to travel easily from one shore of Athos to the other, thus avoiding the danger of the angry ocean surrounding the peninsula's tip. A small road now marks the canal site, a few miles from the main road between the 2 coasts. The small vacation village of Uranoupolis is the embarkation point for the southern shore of Mount Athos. Tens of thousands of tourist cruise ships must come no closer than 500 yards, since they invariably carry women passengers. Unlike the north side, the sea here is calm. Uranoupolis is also the home of the Pyrgos Tower, typical of the ancient lookout towers which dot the peninsula, built to guard against invasions from the sea. The Holy Royal and Patriarchal Monastery of Xenophontos. All monasteries on Athos use the word royal in their title because they were founded by imperial orders of Byzantine emperors. Dochiariou Monastery, established in the 10th century by the monk Efthymios, who earlier served as Dochiaris, keeper of the stores in the monastery at Lavra. The 12th century Russian monastery of Saint Pandelimon. A disastrous fire swept through the lower wing and it was never rebuilt. Fire is a constant threat to the ancient buildings of Mount Athos. The official port of Mount Athos is Daphne. Daphne is the Greek word for laurel, which covers the nearby hillside. Here, visitors undergo clearance by police and customs inspectors for the mandatory permit to visit the holy mountain. Non-Orthodox laymen are only allowed to stay overnight on Athos when they can prove religious or scientific reasons, and their total stay is limited to 4 days. The Port Authority is restricted to issuing only 10 permits each day. The only bus permitted on Mount Athos makes a bumpy daily run from Daphne to the capital, Caries. The trip takes 55 minutes at about 10 miles an hour, and the fare is 40 drachma, about 50 cents. Before the bus, a visit meant a 3-hour hike uphill on a primitive mountain trail. On the southwest side of the Athos Peninsula lies the Monastery of Saint Dionysiou, founded in the 14th century by the monk whose name it bears. Built on solid rock some 300 feet above the sea, the monastery appears to be suspended in midair between earth and sky. Here at Dionysiou lives one of the few English-speaking monks on Mount Athos, a former restaurant owner from Decatur, Illinois, Father John.
I came here in 1963, and when I did come here, I was pretty weak. I was a heart case. I did not give to myself no more than 3 months of life. Coming up this walk to the monastery, I had to stop once or twice to rest and take a breath because I was so weak. Maybe God felt sorry for me, and he gave me more life. And now I'm able to go about and do just about as much as the next door neighbor, as my next door neighbor. The reason that I choose Dionysius Monastery, first, it's a Cenobitic type of a monastery where everything is in common. They don't have this is mine and that is yours. We eat together. The monastery takes care of us. And they give us our clothes, or doctors, or medicine, and we don't have to worry about our health. We don't have to worry financially about our clothes. The monastery takes care of us. The only thing we do is work, do our share of the work for the monastery. My job here is to be a doorkeeper, a gatekeeper. Anyone that comes here, I'm supposed to ask them where they come from, how long are they going to stay, whether they had eaten, and how many are in their bunch, and things like that a doorkeeper should ask. Then I admit them into the monastery. We'll go upstairs to the visitor's room, which we call Archondari. There, I get them acquainted with the father that will take care of them. And the father that takes care of them will write their names and their occupation and all necessary information about the visitor.
We're that neighbor who's always ready to lend a helping hand. We help when disaster strikes, during fires, floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes. We help with food, clothing, health care, and a place to stay. We help when folks need blood. We help the elderly. We help expectant parents prepare for their baby. We help veterans get their benefits. We'll teach you how to check blood pressure. We'll teach you CPR, swimming, and first aid. We'll help you learn how to take better care of yourself and your family. We're the American Red Cross, people helping people. Everyone working together to improve things in your community. That's what Red Cross exists for. Join Red Cross. We'll help. Will you?
Hospitality, a Greek tradition, is swift and generous on Mount Athos. However, the monks have become extremely cautious in recent years, and a thorough inspection of every visitor's permit or the ammonitiria is routine. Increasing theft of Byzantine treasures is an unfortunate fact. Before a visitor is allowed here, he must be screened through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Athens and at the ports of entry, Ierissos and Uranoupolis. At the infirmary, Father Iakovos is justifiably proud of the empty beds, testimony both to the excellent care given the monks and to the healthfulness of the simple and rugged lives they lead. At Dionysiou Monastery, another of the familiar stone towers which served as lookout posts. Countless generations of monks have used them to scan the horizon for any sign of approaching hostile forces. Largely unused in recent years and badly abused by centuries of wind and weather, many of these deteriorating tower balconies have toppled into the sea. Father Simeon, a monk from Thessaloniki, is the monastery librarian. The library holds some 5,000 books and 900 manuscripts, most of them handwritten on parchment, the oldest of which date from the 7th century.
The miniatures, which are illustrations inside the manuscripts, and whose importance is not only obvious for the history of Christian art, but is also great for an attempt to understand the texts which are illustrated through the miniatures which are next, because the artist who made this miniature was always concerned to put it next to a text and give his own explanation.
On Dionysiou's charter, St. John the Baptist stands between the monastery's founders, Byzantine Emperor Alexius Komnenos III of Trepizond and his wife Theodora. The signatures are inscribed at the bottom. Many of the parchment documents are chrysovoules, or deeds and decrees from Christian royalty which donated land to the monasteries. Monks are summoned to church services 3 times daily in a series of 3 signals. First, bells indicate a service will soon begin. Five minutes later, a wooden simandron proclaims the service is about to begin. And finally, the beating of an iron simandron and more bells warns that the service is beginning. At Dionysiou Monastery, its main church, or Catholicon, is dedicated to St. John the Baptist. Its architecture is a combination of Byzantine and Gothic. The miraculous icon of the Salutation of Mary, its face made of gum wax, again blackened by centuries of candle smoke, believed to be the work of the evangelist Luke. Many healing miracles are attributed to this icon, and a variety of gifts and mementos were donated, symbols of thanksgiving from those healed. The grace and beauty of Byzantine frescoes are an everyday sight to the monks of Mount Athos. They provide an opulent echo of the elegant art that was the art of Byzantium. Father Theodoros displays some of the monastery's relics. Among the most precious, the remains of Niphon, Archbishop of Constantinople, who resigned his throne to become a monk at Dionysiou. A crucifix which, the monks say, contains a piece of the original Holy Cross on which Christ was crucified. Another important monastery building, the refectory or dining hall. These wall frescoes attributed to the Cretan school date to the 15th century and depict various scenes from the New Testament. The refectory is decorated with themes from the Book of Revelations. As the monks take their meager meals beneath the ornate frescoes, one of their members perched on a high stool reads portions of the scriptures.
βαπτιζομένου και εφαρμόσει λαμπρά και κατάλληλα χρώματα και κατά μίμηση της φύσεως.
This wall mural represents the ladder of perfection of St. John Climacus. It illustrates the heights to which a monk may ascend through virtue and the endless struggle against hardship and temptation during the journey from earth to heaven. It is a symbol of monastic life, which constantly strives to purify passions, energies, and the faculties of human nature, dedicating them to union with God, despite attacks by demons and the devil. A sense of spiritual community is immediately evident among the monks of Mount Athos. While they consistently observe a meticulous respect for each other's privacy, they are swift to give assistance to a brother monk in need, whether the problem is spiritual or physical. At the end of each meal, traditional respect is paid to the monastery abbot by kissing his hand. The 87-year-old leader of the Vuitton Monastery, Abbot Gabriel, offers a modern interpretation of the famous Apocalypse fresco.
It is quite evident that this fresco shows the atom bomb. It refers to the 18th chapter of the book of Revelation. And this chapter states that I saw locusts flying in the sky. This symbolized today's airplanes, and the locusts were like horses arrayed for battle, and they had the power of hurting men for 5 months. And then I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and a bottomless pit was formed, and from the shaft of the pit rose smoke like the smoke of a great furnace. And 1/3 of the mankind was killed by the fire and smoke, and those who survived were disfigured.
A monk spends his life preparing for death and the uniting of his soul with God. On Athos, burial is brief. After a few years of interment, the remains are moved to a small crypt which houses the bones of all monks who served at Dionysiou. Each monk's name and the date of his death is inscribed on his skull. Another relic, a section of links used by the Romans when they imprisoned St. Peter the Apostle in chains. Father John the Gatekeeper explains to us why he became one of the monks of Mount Athos.
I'll speak as plainly as I can so you will understand my reason for leaving America. I never thought of coming to Greece. It never entered my mind. It never entered my mind to come to Greece. It was because my adopted country gives me the right under the Constitution to follow the faith of my religion to the best of my knowledge and understanding. And that is why I came to Greece. Now, it all happened in this manner. I lived a good life in America, a full of life. So I never had much time to think about God, although my mother taught me when I was little the meaning of the word God. So finally I got sick, and I began to think of what I did if I did anything for my soul, for the benefit of my soul, which I never did anything. Of course, I went to church once in a while, but that was more of a form than of faith. So as I lay sick in my bed, I made up my mind that from here on, I would do as much for my soul as I did to benefit my body as I lived in America. So I made up my mind, and in a week's time, I was ready. I was on a boat and coming to Greece. I intended to go to Jerusalem, but I was so sick I did not stop to find out where they both did go. I know it went to Greece, and that's as far as I wanted to know. It took me 3.5 years to take the vow to become a monk, because I was afraid of the changeover, that I might not be able to live the life as a monk. So I made up my mind. I got used to the ways of the life here in Mount Athos, and it was not so hard, because I had made up my mind to do my best to follow the laws of my religion. During those 3.5 years, I lived the life of an ordinary monk. We are awakened at about 1:30 in the morning, and we are given about half to 1 hour of time to read or pray in our cell before we go to church. When you go to church, we have our rosary with us, and we listen to the chanting, we listen to the reading of the Psalms of David, and also we do say silent prayers with our rosary. That takes about 3.5 hours of work of church service in the night. After that, in our monastery, we are giving a break, and we take a short nap for about an hour and a half. And then we come back and go to church for Mass, or liturgy as we call it, which takes about an hour and a half. After that, if the day is that we should have meal, after the church service, we go to the refectory, and we have our morning meal, which is around 10 o'clock in the morning. After the meal, each one of us goes about his daily work, which is not very hard work, up until the evening, around 4 o'clock, when Vespers when the office of Vespers will take place. Then we go to church for about an hour and a half. After that, we eat again for the evening meal. After the evening meal, we have about an hour and a half to ourselves. We rest and talk if we want to, or take things easy. At sundown, we have the evening prayer, which consists of the salutations of the Holy Mother and a few short prayers. And after that, we ask forgiveness of each other for faults that we did during the day, and we go to our cell. Now, a good monk would read or pray for about an hour or an hour and a half after he goes to his cell, and takes a short nap. Again, we have to get up at 1:30 and follow the daily routine. Now, the rosary that we have, each monk has a rosary, and we'll learn the silent prayer, the prayer of Jesus, which is a continuous prayer. Meaning, you don't have to say, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. That is done orally, mentally, with the sight, with the sound. In fact, to look at God's creation is just like saying a prayer to the Lord. You do respect, appreciate, and worship the Almighty by just being on earth. We pray here for the safety of for the safety of all of us, for the peace of the world, for the unity of the churches, for well-being, for everybody in particular. Our daily church life is over 8 to 10 hours a day. we have to fight three evils. The first evil is ourselves. The second evil is the world and all its temptations. And the third and worst evil is the devil. And he is a constant enemy. He is the enemy of the human race. Those that you see are visitors to our monastery. They came here to worship, and now they are leaving. Hello.
Traditionally, the Byzantine monastic life is austere and simple. Prayer together, prayer alone, work, and in what little time remains, meals and sleep. The basic task of an Orthodox monk is to pray. All other activities are simply an extension of prayer, and this religious lifestyle has changed very little since it was first defined by Basil the Great in the 4th century. The Monastery of Petra, Simon's Rock, built by moving stone and mortar from the sea to a perch of mountainside far above it. The feat has been compared to the building of the pyramids. On a slope of hill with the olive trees nearby is the monastery of Gregory, or St. Gregory. Some monks choose to live alone as hermits in solitary cliffside cells. They get their food in baskets raised and lowered by pulleys, and the word karoulia, Greek for pulleys, is the name for their community. At the very mountaintop is Katunaikia, home to the monks of the House of Daniels, which houses artists and craftsmen. One of the monks, Father Gregory, describes its history.
This house was founded sometime in 1880. The monk who founded this house was called Daniel. He used to live in the Russian monastery of St. Panteleimon. However, he decided to become a monk and came here. After a while, a few others joined him and they established the Brotherhood of Daniels.
Ήρθε στη λιμονή του Αγίου Παντελεήμονος, σήμερα που λέγεται το Ρωσικού. Αφού έκανε ένα διάστημα εκεί 10 έτη περίπου, ήρθε στα
15 years old when I first came to Athos. That was in 1947. I came here from Kavala. I decided to become a monk. I liked the spiritual atmosphere. I liked the Byzantine music, the love and respect with which monks treat each other. I was ordained a deacon when I was 23, and 7 years later I was ordained to the priesthood.
The House of Daniels, despite its emphasis on the arts, is no exception to the general rule of all monasteries, that it be self-sustaining. Thus it grows most of its own produce in terraced gardens surrounding the main house, overlooking the sea. The scarcity of water in this area of Athos would have defeated men of lesser ingenuity. The monks, however, seem to draw on a limitless reserve of optimism in combination with an inexhaustible supply of determination. Many of these mountaintop monastery gardens are irrigated by water from mountain streams, fed through pipes laid for miles by hand. And as if that were not enough to test the strongest mind and back, the pipes first had to be hauled from the pier to the top of the mountain.
Εσείς θα πάτε εκεί πέρα, στέκονται εδώ πέρα και βουγάνε.
Twice each year, these artist monks prepare plywood boards which ultimately become icons. Cut to size and covered with a cheesecloth fabric, the boards are coated with 6 layers of a heated glue-like composition. Between each coating, the icon board is sanded, cleaned, and dried in the sun. When the boards are thoroughly dry, their surfaces will be carefully buffed and polished in preparation for painting. This precise technique for the manufacture of icon boards has been followed step by step without the slightest deviation for centuries. Icon painting is considered a sacred task. It demands holiness and sanctification from the artist who first prepares himself by fasting and penance. Even the brushes, boards, and paints are consecrated before they may be used. Specific colors are mandatory because of their symbolism. Every detail is fixed by tradition and must conform to ecclesiastical requirements. Nothing is left to the artist's imagination. For icons are not considered works of men, but rather manifestations of the saints. And icons are central to the Eastern Orthodox faith. After entering an Orthodox church, a worshiper pays respect to the icon with a kiss, a bow, and the sign of the cross. It is believed that homage paid to the icon of a saint rises to that saint in heaven. An icon painter is not born, but made. Thus Demetrius, a 15-year-old novice, is tutored in the sacred art, beginning with line drawings. Even though he must wait 3 years to become a monk, he will later learn how to mix the paint with egg yolk. A chainsaw speeds the work of a woodcarver who turns out hundreds of wooden discs. Religious symbols are later carved into the discs, which are then used to stamp the bread for churches and religious communities. A neighbor, Father Gerasimos, known as a composer of hymns.
The way you go about composing a hymn or a service to a saint is first, I try to gather as much information as I can about the life and work of that particular saint. Then I withdraw into my office, pull the curtains, and try to concentrate my thoughts on the saint, and at the same time solicit the Lord's inspiration. I engage in interior prayers. When I believe I am ready, I take the pen in my hand and let it write.
Honored by the late Patriarch Athenagoras, Father Gerasimos also composed a series of hymns to the Virgin Mary, commissioned by Archbishop Iakovos, primate of North and South America. His hilltop home and creative workshop affords the privacy he requires for the composition of his sacred hymns. There are only 5 monks in the house of Thomas. They are silversmiths, and their work, booked more than 2 years in advance, is exported all over the world. The small workshop turns out silver gospel covers, candle holders, and chalices. The silver candle holders are hung in front of icons in churches. Decoration is both in silver and gold, and the techniques employed in the use of the precious metals remain unvaried from those used in ancient times. The 5 members of the Brotherhood find time to tend the olive crop. Although most of their income is derived from silverwork, they raise and export green olives, and like the other communities, grow their own produce. The Yerondas, head of the household, is 82-year-old Father Thomas, who came here from Athens as a teenager in 1912, when Mount Athos was under Turkish occupation.
Πάνε τα εκθέσεις στην Αμερική να βγουν τι εστί, Ζάντι.
One of the so-called foreign monasteries on Mount Athos is Hilandari, a Serbian monastery inhabited mostly by monks from Yugoslavia. Some say the name Hilandari stems from the phrase Hili Andres, 1,000 men, referring to 1,000 pirates who once attacked the monastery. Only 3 survived, and they, repentant, became monks. A unique fiali, or fountain, It is here that the holy water is blessed on the first of every month and during special services on holidays. It is made of marble, mined on Athos, and bears a scar, a crack held together by a steel beam. In the 15th century, monks tried to destroy it to prevent its capture by invaders. The roof of the chapel is made of lead, poured to replace an older roof destroyed by fire. Hilandari grew from one small cloister built in 1200 AD by a monk of the same name and became a spiritual center for the Serbian Orthodox Church. It houses 25 monks ranging in age from 23 to 73. Hilandari receives 1 or 2 new monks every year. There would be more, but Yugoslav authorities grant exit visas reluctantly, and Greek authorities also hesitate to admit them for fear of communist infiltration. Still in use is an ancient Byzantine Romanian ivory staff with carvings of the burial and resurrection of Christ, topped by twin lion heads. The Byzantine icons of Hilandari show the Macedonian influence. Unfortunately, these frescoes were touched up in 1804 by an unknown painter who attempted to brighten the faded colors. But most of them have been restored by a careful restoration process in which the top layer of pigment was removed to reveal the original 14th century fresco painting. The icon of the Virgin Mary Tricherusa, meaning three-handed. The third hand represents the severed hand of a monk, restored to his wrist after he prayed to the Virgin Mary. The monk's hand had been cut off by order of the Sultan because he was writing hymns for the church. In thanks for the miracle, the monk had a replica of his restored hand cast in silver and added to the icon. During the Turkish occupation, the monastery's dining hall was used as a smokehouse for meat. This resulted in major damage to the paintings on the wall. Most have been restored. The monastery, which grew up around the cloister of Hilandari, was founded by a king and a prince of Serbia who had fled and become monks, Saint Simeon and his son, Saint Savas. The 17th century frescoes in the dining hall depict scenes in the lives of the two saints. At one time, the entire dining hall was furnished with marble tables, but these were also destroyed during the Turkish occupation. The last resting place of Saint Simeon is located near the monastery wall. Grapes which grow from a grapevine on his grave are believed to have miraculous healing powers, including the curing of sterility. It is said that when it was decided to move Saint Simeon's remains to Serbia, the monks of Hilandari were cast into deep despondency, until one night, Saint Simeon appeared to the abbot in a dream. He told the abbot to let the monks know that a grapevine would grow on the site where his body had lain, and that by this sign, the monks would know their founding saint would still be with them in spirit. The casket of gold which had held the remains of Saint Simeon remained at the monastery. A 12th century mosaic icon was the possession of Saint Simeon and was left to the monks of Hilandari. Hilandari's library contains what is believed to be the first book ever printed, dating to the year 1474, and printed in Mavrovuni, Serbia. Fire destroyed the original library in the year 1722. Today, the library is housed in a modern 3-story building which has excellent security and is fireproof. Its Chrysovoulos, the royal decrees, span the 11th to the 17th century. Most of them are on parchment and they are several feet in length. The library contains about 160 of them, all signed by Byzantine emperors, or Russian and Serbian kings. The monks of Mount Athos are also skilled vintners, and they bring to the cultivation of the grape that same energy and devotion they display in all things. Hilandari's wine master is Father Simeon. He is an experienced guardian of the product, drawing samples from the barrels to determine the moment when the wine has aged just enough and has reached its peak. Wine is vitally important and plays a major role in Eastern Orthodox religious services. It is symbolic of the blood of Christ. The quality of the wine manufactured on Mount Athos is attested to by the fact that it is bottled and exported to many parts of the world. The word monk, monachos, means the unique one who strives for perfection. Within the Christian community, the monk was originally the individual who struggled to fulfill the evangelical commandment from St. Matthew, which reminds us, "You therefore must be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect." For more than 1,000 years, in work and in prayer, the monks of Mount Athos have devoted their entire lives to the pursuit of that heavenly perfection.
This has been a presentation of NBC News in association with the Standing Conference of Orthodox Bishops and the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. If you would like a transcript of today's program, please send $2 to cover the cost of postage and handling to the Orthodox Christian Broadcasting Commission, 575 Scarsdale Road, Crestwood, New York, 10707. That's Orthodox Christian Broadcasting Commission, 575 Scarsdale Road, Crestwood, New York, 10707. Your announcer, Fred Facey.